Hi, Wendy. Hi, Judy. I'm keeping my fingers crossed too. I'm just seeing if I can set something up very quickly on here on the iPad. Come on, where are you? What am I looking for? Come on, think. YouTube. There you go. I've gone to there. Wrong one. There we go. Turn the sound down. And that should tell me that there are 7 people there. That's good. Well done, Ben. That worked. What I've got to do now is see if I can get this is not charging. Ah, there you go. All right, so I can see 7 people. Is that correct, Ben? Oh, it's not charging again. I don't know. I've got a really dodgy connection on my laptop, on my pad. I'm going to not move it. That's not going to have it charge. I give up. It has 2 choices. Good evening, everybody. Let's go through. Wendy, good evening. Judy, good evening. Ben, good evening. And how's the sound? Are we sounding good? And I'm hoping no hissing, whining, moaning, screaming, shouting, or any other unusual sound other than my monotonous voice should be coming your way. Derek, good evening. No buzz tonight. Great stuff. Wendy, sounds perfect. Great. Bexhill, James, good evening to you. Thanks for joining us again. I can see, is this correct now on here? 9 people. Good. Now, as it, I can see it on there, but I can't see it on here. Maybe I need to move something. I'm tempted to touch anything. There we go. Come on, where are you? Are you there? Is it there? I'm pulling it down, but no. For some reason, I can't see it on my own feed. But as Ben suggested, I went on and I've got the whole thing working on my laptop at the same time, so I can actually see at a given glance how many are watching. So that's all good. I will try and change things around so it can be actually in front of me. At the moment it can't be. Right, so oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. It's actually if you want to charge, turn brightness down to save battery, all sounding good. Yeah, it is charging. It's charging from a charging port now. It's got a little bit of a dodgy thing going on it, but it is what it is. But yeah, it's fantastic. I really don't know what to do with myself because I'm not in the middle of a big problem. So I've got extra time. Right now I'm being silly. Okay, I am just excited about doing this. I'm going to bring up the reference so I can see it a little easier. Now this is from a trip to the Everglades. It was actually my honeymoon many years ago. John, good evening to you. Nice of you to join us. Jim, hi. Sound check, good, excellent. We like that. I think there's a few more people might be coming in on the side We are up to 10 people. That's all extremely good. Okay, we'll give it a couple more minutes if that's okay, and then we'll crack on. Now, talking about this little image, it's not an easy one, and I wasn't sure. Yeah, apart from the fact I might need a bath, John. That's only humming from that, mate. But other than that, I'm being rude now. I do apologise. Just losing control because I'm so excited because there's not a problem. No, I'm running off of got the iPad running next to me. Right, okay. This picture. As I say, it's quite, good evening, Jeff. It's quite a sort of, I don't know, a messy one, to say anything else. Now, the first things first, I looked at the whole of the ones that I had in this sequence of shots, and I like this one the most because it had a lot of variety of colour and different bits and pieces going on it, and I felt that that was great. But the one thing that I don't like about it is the fact that there's a tree, and I don't know, I can't actually point it to you, but it's just left of centre in front of the palms, or those small palms in the background, or in the middle ground, should I say. And that I've decided to leave out of the equation. Yeah, probably too much information, John. I did apologise up front. I do apologise again. It's just the excitement's just running away with me. All right, so I was getting back to it. Yes, I'm taking that tree out of it because it is a complete block for you going backwards into the picture. The trees behind it are fine. The tree to the left is fine. But that one just off of centre in front of the palms will not be painted in. So if you wonder what the heck I'm doing and why I'm not doing it, that's the reason why. All right, any crocodiles? No, none at all. Not one. You could paddle through there and you could swim in there and not get bitten by a croc. Although you'll probably get eaten by 2 or 3 big alligators. There you go. I'm in a mood tonight, everyone, so I tell you. Right, okay. It's been a good day in some ways. I've got a fair bit done. I have posted a new video to my Patreon, so they'll all be happy, I'm sure. And I put my Friday one up as well. Hi, James. Nice of you to drop in by. Right, okay, let us get started. Also, I'm going to just be talking and doing nothing more, but we are 14 people up, and that's cracking. I'm going to put a very light line just through the bottom here, more in the top than the bottom. I'm umming and ahhing on that, and part of me wants to put more in the bottom. Do you know, I think I'm going to actually do that. I'm going to bring up that line there, and I'm just going to think about these 2 lines. The thing is that you've got, if you look at the back of the sandbar, it's almost dissecting the canvas in the middle. So do you put in more of the water information, or do you put more of the trees and the sky in the background? Well, I think I can actually put a much smaller area of green and that through here, so you could have a little bit of dark just under here, like so. And then put the trees in up through here, and then make more of the bank and the water and everything in the foreground. I think it might be a wrong choice, but I feel that that's where I want it to go at this point. And though I have got to make that decision, of course, because I can't really change it way in. Romarik, good evening to you too. Thanks for joining us. Yes, that's cool. I'm not sure. Ramar, are you with us or are you missing it tonight? I'm not sure what you're quite saying there. Okay, Dreeza, good evening to you too. Thanks for joining us. Have I got my Guinness? No, I haven't. I didn't feel that I would need the Guinness straight away. I might jump straight to a Scotch later. Depends how this watercolour goes. But I have a glass of glug, and that will help me out. So let's just plot some simple lines for our trees. Some here and we've got a lot of bush and scrub going on through here. A couple of trees at the back, put those in, and there's one sort of there, put that in. It doesn't actually matter if every tree you put in is exactly the same as the reference. We're not trying to recreate everything spot on. What we're trying to do is evoke the lovely feeling of the Florida Everglades, and although there are people out there that know it intimately and far more than I ever will, I've only ever visited a few times, and so to that end I am a mere passerby and spectator to this wonderful swampland down in Florida. But the times I've had, I've enjoyed thoroughly, and I wouldn't hesitate to go back. It's a wonderful place, and this is all part of I think this is not the Ding Darling estate. No, of course it's not. That's actually on Sanibel. Wrong. I think this is one place called I think it's called Billy Swamp, something like that. There's a guy who's got an operation down there in the Everglades and caters for an awful lot of people visiting the place. Anyway, I digress. But yes, lots of these lovely leaves coming through here on this side, and the palm going on up through the back there out the way. So that really takes care of a lot of what's going on. There's going to be a little peripheral greenery that's going up, and I don't know whether they are what trees they are, those smaller scrubby trees. There's an awful lot of them. It's an amazing area in terms of ecological values, with the with the growth and the trees and the wildlife that are in there. And we were around on a very shallow bottom punt in here, and it was fantastic. I'm going to put that tree there just to give that a little bit more. I can't get the same distance between this one and this one, but I will put this one in almost on the edge, and that will come down a little further into this part of the water here. That will then leave me several little bits and pieces that I can just sort of put in and scratch around with and just look. I'm not going to be able to sort of draw too much, and I don't really want to. I want to sort of just suggest one or two bits. There's a stump there. There are lots of stumps, and I'm not quite sure what some of these trees are, because there are other photos we've got where the bottoms just grow out this way. Hi JC, thanks for joining us. That's great, thank you very much. And hopefully, if you've been here before, and I think you have, you won't be getting a hiss or a hum this time. We've sorted the audio out, and to everybody else's delight, I hope. Well, there you go. Right, now I think that's pretty much it. And as regards the drawing is, because a lot of this stuff I can put in later, I really just want to get the essence down and look at some of the forms and shapes in here before we commit. So I have cleaned my palette, as you can well see. Cypress trees, yes, thanks Jim, I have heard of that. Completely slipped my mind. Thank you for reminding me. I appreciate that. They're wonderful trees. They're almost like yeah, they're so ancient looking. Anyway, right, crack on. I'm going to put in a bit of ultramarine blue. Now you'll notice that if you can see some of my palette, you probably can't from there, but there are several squeezes of fresh paint. So when you are diving into fresh wet paint, be aware that you're going to be able to pick up an awful lot more pigment very, very quickly. And there is a little tip: if you are using paint like that, and you are being aware, that's fine. But if your paint is dried in the pan, or indeed if you don't use tube colors, you use pan colors, then I would suggest a little spray bottle at the beginning of the session. Just wet your paints up, get them a little bit damp on top, and that aids with a little bit of your working into them with a brush. But it's great also when you've got this fresh paint out of the tube. It's just half of it's there ready to go. Okay, I'm just going to come in with a wash. Now I'm using 300 pound paper. I am using a synthetic dagger from Rosemary, and that to that end is great. They're lovely brushes. And I'm just going to come in with that is a little bit on the heavy side. I'm going to tap in a little touch of cerulean blue. I think that's actually cerulean with an awful lot of I think there's an awful lot of cobalt sort of taking up residence on the top of that then, but never mind, it's not a big problem. I'm going to bring this all the way down. Keep the bead going, keep the water flowing, keep the bead running, and you'll have no problems. Just going to take that out there because that's a little bit, I don't want that running into the paint further on, so I'm just going to come on down, let this roll through and bring it down very, very gently. Maybe a tap more in there and let it come through the greenery. Doesn't matter. But what I am going to do is I'm going to stop it just around about there where we've got the top of that sandbank. And it doesn't matter, I don't take it all the way down through there, but that's fine. And what I will do now is I'm going to tap in a little touch of ultramarine violet to that colour. And I'm going to run it in 1 or 2 places here, like so. But at the same time, I'm also going to be running in some very fresh raw sienna and a little touch of Indian red, not too much. And I'm going to bring that in too. I'm going to run the two together, and this will give me my water pretty, I'm hoping anyway, this will give me my water pretty well full on straight away. So I've got a little bit of water and a little bit of sky color coming through there, and I'm going to run this all the way through the back here now on my foreshore. I'm not worried that the whole thing will bleed out. I'm not worried about that at all. I'm looking to just get this color down and my first wash in place so that I can let this dry up. And yet, you've guessed it, ahead of time, the lovely hairdryer can come out, and I say it can come out, I've got to find it. 2 seconds, I'll be right back with you. Just when you thought it was safe to go back into the water, there we go, one hairdryer. And don't go mad at this, the painting surface is quite wet. Now what you'll see me do in a second is that I will take off a little bit of the paint just at the bottom here, because this needs taking away or it will blow back and cause a bloom from the bottom. So let's take that off very, very gently, no problems at all. So we've got a lovely wash and we've got our lovely setup for our sky and our water and everything else. Now what I'm going to do, what's this? Haven't seen you on group page yet. Oh, okay. It's called entertainment at Paul's expense. Yeah, probably. Sue, nice good evening to you. Where is your grandson? He is absent. Right, I'm going to turn this on, so if you want to hit the mute button, please do so now. He says. There we go. I'm holding it quite high because I don't want to disturb too much of this to start with. I want to get it a little bit dry. Okay, sorry about that. Now, you probably saw me concentrating a lot up in here, and that's two reasons. Well, one very big reason is a little bit of a mess up in terms of, I said to you about working with neat pigment, and there's a little bit too much in the brush as I went through like this with the wash, and it deposited larger clumps of pure color up through here. But there was enough moisture in this, because this paper is pretty much impervious to water. It was allowing the paint to run down and into the top here. So my first job was quite simply to stop that running any further into the page. Not a problem, but I didn't want it creeping down even further, so I dried that off very, very quickly. The idea of going up very high with the hairdryer to begin with is so that you don't push areas of wetness into little clumps, so that start pushing blooms of color ahead of it. So if you dry off gently at the top and then come down slowly and slowly and slowly until you're really dry, then it works very, very well and you don't cause a problem. Right, let's move on and let us look at a secondary set of color. I'm going to mix my ultramarine, my yellow ochre and my little bit of blue that I had sitting there together, and that will present a type of blue. I'm going to put a lemon into this here and give me a dirty green, because that's picking up all of these horrible colors. Now I don't necessarily want to keep that. I want to get a lovely fresh green. So I'm going to come in here with some aureolin, and I am going to use a little bit of phthalo blue, and that will send it off towards that lovely color green, fresh green. And I want to put some of that through some of these areas here on the background. I'm going to go right the way through my trees. I'm not too worried about that. If I want any highlights back in them, I can produce those later, or I can quite happily leave a little bit of stuff before I start. And I'm just going to come in here with a sort of a random marks more than anything else. I've got to look to the lovely fresh color of these sword-like branches on these lovely palms, and that's just a first layer. I want to actually add a little bit more Indian yellow to that green, just to give them that little shift, because they're quite yellowish in certain leaves. So I'm going to put that in like so. And I'm going to do the same. No, I'm not. I'm just going to come over this side. In fact, there are some, but they're quite shady, so I'm going to leave those. I'm just going to come in here with more of this color, and this is really just scratching around and leaving and depositing some of the scrub in the background. And that comes across the bottom of these trees, so they will disappear into some of this. And as we go upwards into the areas above, into the or the sky, then these little bits of green and darks, they are not necessarily dark blacks or dark browns, but they are dark greens and branches that are sort of semi-silhouetted due to the proximity of the sky being so bright and they are so dark. So you're going to get these semi-silhouettes happening. So for that, I'm going to put in a little mix here of indigo and my favorite orange into that. Now the orange and the indigo are fresh mixes of color, so I'm not too worried about that. And I'm just going to use the tip of this brush. Now this is a lovely dagger brush, and you'll notice that it was a long handled one, so I cut the end off. I don't normally use long handle for watercolor. It's funny really, because I use long handle for oils and I just don't use it for watercolor. Now I'm going to put in I think actually, before I go too much further, I really want to get my tree forms in, so I'm going to come in with quite a bit of dark. I'm going to use some sepia, which is a lovely sort of transparent brown color, like so. And I'm just going to come in and I'm going to suggest our tree shapes, easily done with this brush. Now be careful that if your green is not dry enough, you're going to cause yourself a problem. So be careful. You do need to make it dry or have it dry. You can use the hairdryer again, it's really not a problem for that. But let's just put in some of these colours. There's a lot of blue in there, so I want to put in a little tap of blue violets into that tree. Let's try a mixture. I've been thinking about doing this picture for some time for you guys, but there's so many other subjects that I also love to cover, so this has sort of taken a little bit of a backseat till now, but hopefully we will change that. And there's that dark, I think it's a fallen tree or log or something that's laying there, and lots of other stuff which we're going to put in later. What I really want to do is keep this nice and fresh. No Luke, we will have to be quiet. Sorry Wendy, I still haven't joined Facebook yet. No Teresa, slap on wrist, you've got to do that. You've got to get involved with that. Okay, I'm just going to leave that to set up, and I am going to come in here with a little bit of dark into this rear tree, and I've got to be careful. I don't really want to lose too many of my fronds, whatever, but I know they're there, and I'm going to lose some, but some of the light marks will also act as a little bit of light for the edges of leaves, so I'm not too worried. And I'm going to lose the base of these trees anyway by doing things like that. And let's come in with our next tree. There's a quite bluish colour in them, so I'm going to carry on with that idea, and I'm just going to put in a lovely blue mark there. I'm going to use some more sepia in this one so I can actually put the two together like so. And this chisel brush or this dagger brush really does lend itself to creating these lovely simple marks like so, and our tree is absolutely just painting itself like that. We're doing it again down through there, and this one's got some other branch work on it, so we're going to put that in, maybe a bit through there, and there's some going up this side, something like that, and we can play around. And I think there's a big old tree that goes off to the side here, we can put that in as well. And then there's a lot of sort of palmy things which we will put in and lay in later on. Alright, so we've got the best part of that in, and I'm just going to come in and put in the suggested trunks for these palms. I'm not quite sure of how they all grow, but I have seen them in quite clumps before, so I'm going to suggest that growing out of a central area of the base. I think that's probably very similar to some of the ones that we have over here in that regard, how their growing habits, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to bring this down here, it's dark, and I'm going to mix that with a little bit of aureolin and a little bit, actually I'm going to use some phthalo green, which is quite a potent green. I'm going to add some Indian yellow into that, and I'm just going to come across and make some secondary dark marks into some of this foliage through here, suggesting that it's all doing other things, and there's darks, there's lights, lots of bits happening, and we can drop other colors in if you want to, but I'm just going in like so. And I don't know quite, there's like creepers, vines that are growing up, some of these other things. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing there with those, so I'm going to sidestep those for a bit and just come back to some of these other colors and suggest that there are sort of growth and trees up through here. I'm just tapping into the surrounding sky colors just very loosely. The brush is almost dancing. It doesn't matter, we are sort of making tree forms, and we can actually qualify some of those with a few lines later that are suggesting the trunks and branches that we aren't able to put in right now. So a lot more going in through here, and I'm allowing the color to fade off and distance itself. Now I'm getting a bit cooler, I don't want to interfere too much over the top of these. I want to suggest 1 or 2 bits in the background behind, but that I want to preserve that as much as I possibly can. And I'm going to put 1 or 2 marks over here. Come back with some of these lighter ones, and I'm also going to actually come in there with a bit of red in the form of Indian red, and a little bit of the raw sienna. It's a little bit powerful. Take some off and make it a very dirty color. And I'm just going to suggest, and nothing more, 1 or 2 sort of warmish areas. Actually, I want to warm that up, but I want to put a bit of blue in it too, so it's sort of giving it a bit of distant shrub behind everything else that's going on there, and just adding in a bit more distance through there. Actually, I like the color, but I think it's a little bit too dull, so I'm going to actually put in some more blue, or blue violet, in form of some of the lovely ultramarine violet that I got sitting there. And I'm only tapping it because it is again a fresh mix of color, so it's fresh in the tubes. And I'm just going to put some in there and suggest that there's other stuff going on and out of the picture, like so. Just trying to mix it up a little bit, that's all. Right, let's have a look at the thing. And I definitely agree, removing the tree as it was, cutting the gorgeous fern shape in half. Yeah, I decided that well before. Yeah, you're perfectly right, John. Okay, so we're going to beef some of this up later on, but for the meantime we're going to let that dry. And I want to concentrate on a little bit of dark going on in this foreground. So for that, I'm just going to come in, and I do want to paint in some of these lovely light greens. Now I'm going to clean this palette color out and mix in a fresh mix of Aureolin, and this time a little bit of the green. Now see how electric that is. I'm going to see if I can temper that just a little bit with some Indian yellow. And I want to come in here, and I just want to put in 1 or 2 light marks like this. Now I don't know what the plants are, but they are going to be there, and I'm going to try and do my utmost to paint negative space around them further on into the painting. If I do, that's great. If I don't, I'm not going to cry over it. It would be nice if I can preserve some of them and get them working in the painting later on. So I'm going to let them dry up now and do nothing or very little more. What I might just do is 1 or 2 areas of light in here, some stronger yellows, maybe there's that little fern through there, 1 or 2 things like that, tapping around, a few light greens in the foreground, just to mix it up a little bit. As I say, you can't always leave space, but you can sometimes work around space. Okay, so with that done, let's now look at our foreshore. And I want to come back in with some of these darker mixes of the warmth of the ochre and a bit of the indigo. Just look at that and just come back in and play around with the ideas. I think it could be doing with a lot warmer. So I'm going to come back in with my lovely transparent orange again. Turn the brush upside down. I've got a bit more control here by doing that. Here I have got the worry that if I press here, I could deposit paint from here. So if I turn the brush over, then I don't have so much of a worry to that. Now, as I'm drawing negative space in here, I'm also using the tip to draw in suggestive branches that are moving up into some of these other forms. So I'm allowing some of these greens to remain, the lights to remain, but also pushing up some of the darks in here. So I'm going to use that all the way along and just play around with the ideas of different grassy greeny forms. Put a little bit of green into there. A little bit of Aureolin will help. Aureolin and those mixes I just had work very well. It's a little bit like doing a dull green in terms of oil painting when you use a blue black, which is merely ivory black and ultramarine blue, and then you start mixing lemon yellow to that, you suddenly get a lovely darker color green, but it's also a muted green because it sort of suggests that it's going backwards in degrees of aerial perspective. So right, and I'm just going to carry on playing around with a few marks and just little taps and little shapes and forms with the brush, just drawing in with some of these and just suggesting that, as I say, there's so much going on back here that the eye can't settle on any part of it with any degree of success. And it goes all the way through there like so. Big scratchy marks, big dry brush marks, let some of this stuff skate across the canvas or the paper and the page, and it will just give you a lot of interest moving forward. I'm going to come in here and just take some of that out from there. And I'm using the dry brush method. It works very, very well, but and it allows you to skip over the top of the page. So I'm going to bring some of those and unite some of those colours there with some of these greens as well, like that. What I don't want to do is get this so dark and depressing that we lose any sense of purity in the greens. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to put that Indian yellow into there, into that phthalo and that other colour, and I'm just going to try and draw out some of these fronds, these whatever they are, you know what I mean. And I'm gonna come in. There are a couple that are coming towards me. I'm not going to worry those. I'm going to put those in later with some gouache. So I'm going to use that now. I'm just going to suggest these popping up and spiking everywhere, as it were, and then they're coming down into the base like so. Alright, I suppose a local painter will be having a fit of laughter right now the way I'm rendering their lovely area, but hey ho, I just enjoying it. And I'm just going to come around here and do the same thing here for these fern leaves like so, and there are some coming down this way which I want to put in, and that loses that top of that tree, and some coming out this way too. And there's a little bit more light, a little bit more yellow in some of these ones. Actually there's a lot of Indian yellow in there, and let's just put some of that in. Maybe a little bit more water as well, make them flow a little bit more. But there is a lot of sort of light that is actually going to be put in later, or darkness put in later, and revealing some of these leaves as lighter than they actually are. So I'm going to try and put some of that in there like so, and leave that, and then see if I can bring some of the darks over it in a little while. Right, okay, I'm going to have a glug. I don't know what we're doing for time. 38 minutes in, not bad. I'm going to leave that to dry out for a little while. I still wanted to get a level of darkness in which has eluded me so far, so I'm going to go for that now. And I'm going to put in all the way through here, and this is going to be a dark statement all the way through the bank, and just tapping negative space in this way to suggest that there are one or two plants that are sort of in that foreground there, taking it all the way through here, this dark, like so, up to the edge of that tree. And we will add to that, as I say, further on down the road. I hope that will go like so. Right, leave that and move along to the other end of the bank. A little bit more orange into that mix again, and let's just come through here with this lovely dark in here. This is going down to the bank. Lots of dark underneath some of these shrubs and into some of the base areas of some of these, but I'm trying to leave quite a large area of beach there, and I want this to be particularly dark as it touches the lovely sand. So I'm going to make it a very crisp mark, like so. Concentrating for a minute. There is some sort of piece of wood that's laying up over there. I'll do other little bits and pieces there, and I want to leave a little trail through here so that you could actually, in a sense, walk through and carry on walking through the glades. The beauty of these brushes, they are so versatile. I say it every time and I will not stop saying it. They are beautiful brushes. I'm mixing up some darks in here now. You've got lots of light going through the back there, but you've got a sense of dark, foreboding sort of area in under here where something could quite happily be lurking and waiting, as it were. Right, okay, let's leave that and let's just let that dry. I'm going to come back, I'm going to clean this green out here. A fresh bit of paper. Come back in with some of my pure raw sienna and mix that up well. I just want to suggest a little bit of light there, but it's just the smallest amount. Mainly I'm putting in water. I put some colour on, but I really don't want to touch any of that dark up there. Playing with, dicing with death in a sense, playing with fire. I'm going to leave it at that because I know I'm going to regret it. I'm going to let that dry before I carry on, and I'm going to start looking at some of this in a moment, but while I can, I'm going to put some more darks into our trees. So to that end, I'm going to make them very dark but very cool. So I'm going in with another bit of violet in here, and I'm going to leave some of the original colour to show up as I move down. These trees have got this wonderful sort of bark. It's a varied bark variation in shape, form and colour. So I'm going to try and replicate that as best I know how from this point of view. And yeah, I will make some of them darker further in, but I think that's working quite well for the moment on that one. And we're going to make this one very similar, but a little darker. It's a little further away, got a little bit less information. There's a lot more. I think I've actually added a tree in. I didn't count them very well. I realise now, but never mind. I'm going to put a lot of dark marks in here and let that, turn the brush round and let that work that negative space again to illuminate our ends of our lovely fern that are just popping into it. You can make those even more so when you go in further, and let's just prove that. Let's just come in with a real dark in here while we've got this going, and just being very careful. We can now use that negative space to highlight those beautiful edges of these leaves here, and you can bring that down and you can make them even stand out more by putting little bits of dark and light in there as you go through. So I'm going to take that all the way off to the top of the page so I don't leave anything, and it's quite a large thing. I think it's I think they're palms. Some of these are palms. If I was to shoot the camera upwards, I would see a mass of fronds hanging down at different angles. So I'm pretty sure that's what these ones are, or some of them, or cypress or whatever, as Jim said. So I'm going to come down here and make this one come this way like so, and this one's got a lot of dark stuff going on to it, and I'm going to bring that through like that, and I can see that from the photo that these fronds here are also very dark, and actually it's very hard to tell where tree and they sort of start and stop. Other than direction, it's very hard to tell exactly where they are. I'm just going to come in through there, and it gets lost into the undergrowth. And I will just look at this and put a bit of more water to that, mix up myself a stronger mix of that dark, and just come in once again over this and look at the shape as they sort of come, and it cuts itself down and around. Right, so, and then comes across some of this one here, so I'm going to put that in, and literally just stop somewhere like that. And this one up here has got other additional shapes and values and colors, so we're going to put that in. A lot of shade in this one, and they stick out nicely against that lovely sky behind it, so that's good too. No problem, Jim. Thanks for joining us so far. We have 24 watching. That is excellent. I am very privileged to have 24 of you willing to watch me. That's cracking. Alright, so I'm going to add in now. I'm going to get ready to put in a little bit of our water, and for that I'm touching some raw and burnt sienna together and a little bit of each. I want to come in and suggest our water. Now it's going to dry up lighter, but just pay attention that you don't come in and mess up any of your lovely blues. So we want to take it around that bank so we can get that lovely bank shape going, and along there, and take that off to one side, and then come back this way, and it goes off behind this area here. We don't need to take it all the way up here because it is actually lost to us, but it does, however, come past this part here, and we need to observe that. So a bit more paint, a little bit more color, and we can come in here and we can put in a warm blend, and we can play around with some of these shapes. We can actually leave some of these as reflections from all the wonderful plants that we've got going up here. We've certainly got darker reflections from these trees, and therefore this one here will not have its reflection here. I must remember not to put that in. It'll look a bit silly otherwise. So I'm going to come in here and put this lovely color through, which is the nice water, dirty muddy water as it were, and that will come all the way. It's got a lovely glow, and I want to make sure we don't lose any of that. Bit more of the ochre in the bottom part, and leave the burnt sienna out of it as it comes a little fresher down here into the light. And yeah, I quite like where that's going. Take that all the way to that edge. Don't worry about that area. We've got quite a bit of dark matter going in there, so it's not a big deal. But we can come back and we can touch two of those colors together, and we can do a little bit more of suggesting. We can play around with a bit of this color, just warm it up in one or two places like that, for instance. And got to be careful that your paint is damp enough to take these extra jumps, because if it's still damp it will actually mark. Now I'm going to put in the suggestion of the beginning of that one up there, and there is this one here, and I'm going to put that in, and then just tapping one or two other marks in here that are sort of suggesting the foliage and the sky beyond, something like that. And yeah, I'm going to put in, there's some blue, so I'm going to put in a little bit of the violet now with the ochre, see what that looks like. And I'm just going to come in with one or two taps of the violet in here into the water. So we've got a few simple sort of surges, watery marks in here, just using the tip of this brush to sort of sketch and scratch around in here, and we're going to get these lovely marks working. Now I'm going to be using the same color of this violet to create the shadows over here, these violety shadows, but in the short term I just want to play around with some of this in here, and maybe a bit more blue, maybe that's too much, we'll see, and just play around with some of these colors. And if I'm going to do that, let me just sort of come in here and suggest, so we don't have hard lines to deal with. Let's just take some of that through there like that, and that will become a shady area that goes up towards the tree. And yeah, I'm just sort of keeping this going. Lots of water is constantly dropping down out of the canopy. It's moisture and whatever, and of course then you've got lots of dampness going on. It's what makes it what it is, I suppose, isn't it? Really, that's why it's the Everglades. Right, okay, and I want to put in tap of blue. That's way too strong because I know where it's come from, but I just want to put in a little shadowy colour through there of blue, just to give a sense of a shadow running through there from something above, and I think that works quite nicely. But I want to let that settle up. I want that to dry up a little bit before we carry on. So I'm going to take this time to glug and read what's going on in the chat. Nothing much by the look of it. Okay, right. Let's just see where we're at. I've actually covered my face up, so I don't even know what I'm doing in that sense. There I am. Okay. Right. Okay, so moving forward then, we've got to let this dry before we do too much more to it. But really and truly now we're sort of honing in on the I's and the T's. We're putting the dark values in. Other than these, I know we put those in, but we're putting the darker values in now that are very suggestive of all our shadows and forms, and they will then add light factors to all this foreground, which at the moment looks nice, but it's by no means where it should be. Okay. Getting a bit dry tonight. Jeff, good. Nice to see you still there. I think we've got about 23, 24 on the chat. So that's great to see all of you there. Now I'm going to see what I need to do up here. One or two warmer areas. I'm going to go back in with a little bit more of my raw sienna, and I'm just going to come in and suggest one or two darker areas, one or two, nothing more, just to vary up the colour across into the water. There is like a little inlet there which I actually haven't observed, so I'm going to try and suggest a little bit of that there as that comes through. There's a little light area that's, I guess, between the two trees. I'm not sure if that is the reason, but it suggests that to me. And there is this dark passage. Now this dark has got quite a significant shape, so I'm going to come back in with I'm going to take it from there and take it down there like so. So that forms that dark area, and there is some sort of movement in the water. I know that should technically be a bit blue there, but I'm not too worried about that. We are just having a bit of fun. Just a little bit of variation in colour, and maybe a little bit over here too, not too much, because I do like what's going on over there. Now I'm going to leave that. I think I'm going to leave that alone. I like where it's at. I'm just going to use this, and I'm not going to take off too much of the hard edge because it is just lots of bits of growth and different colours as it comes down and into some of this here. A little bit of blue into there. No, wrong blue. We go back to our colour, and we will just warm this area up through here like so. Tease between the two so we get reflections and sort of colour being switched off and taken from one to another. Same in here, we want to add a bit to that, and we're going to add some lovely swirls to that. Now again, I know that there should be more blue in places, but if you remember when we first set that up, it was quite an arbitrary random colour mix. So if it works, it works, and you know, if it doesn't, then it's not a great loss. It is merely playing around with these colour values, making the whole thing work out. Just looking at playing with some of these lovely shapes in the water. And actually, so you got that colour there. It's not, my drawing is essentially not quite lined up. What I could quite happily do, and I might just do it actually, is although this tree and this ends about here, I'm going to take it through to about there, so we can get that sense of shadow from this one working its way all the way through, and leave it quite like that. taking off a little bit. Just play around with the edge. We've got a lovely bit of blue in there, and I want to play with that later. I want to put some of that violet into that colour there, and a bit more of that, and maybe a little bit of burnt, and just work into some of these shapes while this is damp, because you've got a lot of darker swirls in here which I'm not getting in, and they do definitely go to that violet colour, that blue violet colour, which I'm going to use now, and let those come in and play around with the edge of the reflection, and all sorts of lovely shapes. This is what I love about water, because it's constantly, it's on the move, altering, changing every second. It doesn't stay the same at all for very long. And bring some of that across. There's actually that dark shadow, so there's obviously something quite heavy in here, so we need to suggest that. I hadn't planned on getting into this part right now, but we're here, so let's just go for it, and that I think goes out and suggests why that dark blue's through there. And if I've got to put in a bit of gouache to suggest some of these logs later and the highlights on them, that's not a problem either, because if I want those areas to show up, then I have to make the areas around them much darker. So there's these lovely sort of twists of darks and lights, of reflections from things above, and there's a lot of dark in here. So I'm just going to plonk that down there and add a little bit of the orange into that, like so, and play around a little further just in here. And I'm going to add in a little bit more of the blue just into that water there. Just a suggestion of it, nothing too much. You want to see the state of my trousers under there. I've got so much water, I feel like I've just come out of a shower. I keep flicking it everywhere. I'm going to use that and leave that like that. I think that's just a lovely switch around of tone and colour shift through there. And a bit more. I'm going to leave a little bit over there. I'm just going to bring some in here. Just let that play with that water and let that settle where it wants to. And we've got to continue this whole sort of theme on going all the way over really to this other side when we get there. And there's quite a bit of this ultramarine violet. I'm so glad I went out to my store and got the replacement tube out. I would have been coming unstuck by now, I assure you. Right, I'm just going to come in and just play around with some of these forms that look as though they are lovely shadows from above, casting their shadows across the murky waters of the glade, like so. And I'm going to put in a dark value under here, which is going to form the base of there. And just give it a quick look. I think there's also a bit of dark through there, which will take up so, and through there, shorten the tree. I think there's going to be quite a bit of dark in there coming down, and then we've got this dark form of this log, which I'm going to take just to about there. Leave that at that for the moment. We'll come back into that and deal with more of that in a moment. But there is more of this lovely shadow that's coming from here and emanating right across there to there, I think. And there are plenty, but I think that really does say what it's got to do. A little bit of combination of warm in here. Just let the paints flow together. Just tap it on. Let them settle down. Put a bit more of the shadow forms in here. It's quite dark in here, quite cool as well. So I'm going to bring that in and let that do what it wants to do. Let it settle down. It's going to bleed, it's going to run. I'm not overly worried about it. It all adds. At the end of the day, this is not a photograph we're painting. We're painting a feeling of the glades, and that's the part that excites me. Right, I'm going to come in and I'm going to use some, I'm using an awful lot of this ultramarine violet tonight, just going for it, and I want to put in this shadow side over here. Now it's going to be a lovely cool shadow, and it's going to come from here. there's a couple of lovely sort of trunks or something that are laying right across there in terms of shadow, and there's a darker form going into there, and then there's one or two bits coming down here. Not too far down, there's quite a lump of something going on here with this shape in there. And the nice thing about 300-pound paper is that it allows me a lot of working time. So I'm going to leave that like that and just let that dry off. And there are going to be one or two very much thinner marks. I'm going to try and just put one or two in. They're not maybe exactly where they are in this, but I just want to suggest that there is lovely shadows and forms all the way across this beautiful area that we're looking at. I'm joining a few of them up, so they may not directly correspond with what you're seeing in the photo, but I think that doesn't matter. You can call it artistic license if you want to, and if you haven't got an artistic license, I will lend you mine. I got mine from the post office the other day, so it's there, and you're welcome to borrow it. I'm just going to put one or two areas here that are suggesting of something else down there. Give a few leading lines. Let that dry up now, I think, and let that settle down. We're too enthralled by what you're doing to chat, Paul. Oh, why is that? Well, you can chat, Wendy. I'm going to have another glug. I'm having fun with this. I am having fun with this. I wasn't sure at first whether I was going to do it or not, because I was worried about so much lack of colour, but then it's a case of injecting the colour, putting that colour in, and to that end I think it's working quite well. I want to come in with some darks at the top now. I'm going to put a bit of Venetian red into some of that, and a little bit of indigo, a bit more than that, and a bit more than that. There you go, and maybe a tap of orange too. And I want to sort of, while this is setting itself up, I just want to sort of come in and mess around with some of the shapes that are up in here a little bit, and just suggest one or two other things and other forms. And I want to put in some of that green. There's other greens up there that could do with a bit more colour and life into some of them. Just very much as I did down here, I'm allowing the brush just to dance around and just create little taps, little bits and pieces that are going on in here. Just mixing it up a little bit, adding another value of green through the back there. And I'm not painting flowers, not painting trees, I'm tapping shapes, tapping little forms in. Just giving you the suggestion that there are other things there. And you know, you can actually sort of create little extra little palms and stuff that are spiking around out there, and they're going to be out there whatever, in that fashion. And now I'm going to come back in, and I will just use my finger as a support and just let the brush sort of dance around with a few very, very fine little marks that are sort of suggesting branches and stuff hanging down from the trees, crisscrossing. They come forward, they go backwards, they go all over the show. Maybe a little dark in one or two of them, but the lightest of touch. And one or two bits coming down like so. I think that's working. There's quite a bit over here which I haven't addressed, and I think I want to make them a little cooler too. I'm just going to put a bit of violet to those before I go scratching in, and I can put some darks to that. Not unhappy about that thought, but I didn't want to go in too dark to start with. You can't take it off, but you can put more on. Just take that all the way up the back there, just to break up some of that form around this tree over here too. and I want to put in a lot more. There's actually a lot more dark greens going on over the back here, so I'm going to mix that into a darker cool green, and there's an awful lot of palm stuff coming in here, so I'm just going to suggest one or two of those just to finish this off in here, like so. A few sort of marks of that nature that's suggesting that there are other bits and pieces working their way through, and a dark value of one that's really pushing through here too. So I'm going to put that in, and all of a sudden it starts to look a little bit less like England and a little bit more like the Florida Everglades. You're going to mix that up now. Mind you, I suppose, you know, it could be the Romney Marshes. If the sea defences failed, they would be. Alright, you'll leave that like that and just leave that to settle up now. I'm going to put one or two darker marks into some of this. And put the first layer into it, and I'm quite happy to add to that now, just so we've got a little bit of form, shape going on with some of these trees in the background. And this is where the beautiful little tip of this brush comes into its own. It's wonderful filaments, and you know, you can do just so much with it. You don't need a rigger, really and truly, if honest with some of these. You can just, as long as your brush is good, it will do a powerfully good job for you. Coming in with a bit of phthalo green just to mix some of these greens up a little more than I had them. A few darker ones in here. Just trying to give this now a little bit more form, shape, and therefore depth. One or two marks that are suggesting some of the trunks and stuff in the background. Doesn't matter the green colour. If you feel that you want to make them umber or browns, you can go back in and do that. Not saying you can't. You can put some brown umber there and a bit of red if you want to. Mix the two to the green, and all of a sudden you've got some different values of trunks going in. Stems, trunks, branches, thickets, scrub. And just come back in with a few more. Just change some of this, going some darker values over the lighter ones, so it just mixes the whole thing up. But I don't want to lose the sense of light that's running through the back there. And this is why in here it's got to be very, very dark. Eventually, I don't think I'll go over again. I might do, but we'll see. And just want to make this sort of really sort of dark and sort of a little bit foreboding in here. And this is drying up very nicely. I'm not doing anything more to the foreshore. I will put in, though, while I can, that a bit of violet blue into this stumpy thing here. Just check that. No, it's not dry enough yet, so I'm going to have to walk away from that for the moment and leave that, and just see where I carry on over the back here with one or two more marks before we sort of look at and tackle the last part of this, which is all these areas in here. Right, one or two sort of odd stems, branches. A bit more water. Good Lord, we've got 24 people watching. Does that mean say Ben's back? Was the artist license expensive? I give my art college free. Yeah, no, actually, it wasn't too bad. I think you, at my age, you get it pretty much for free anyway, John. They just look at you and sort of give pity, and you know, they sort of just give it to you. I think it's only expensive if you're young, and I'm so past that yeah, I just get them. I think next year I'll get it free anyway, a bit like the bus pass. But I'm not quite ready for a bus pass. Before any one of you go off, say that. Ben, thanks. Hi Sylvia, thanks for joining in. Nice of you to come on and say hi. Great stuff. I think we're sort of just playing around with a few bits here while I'm waiting for this to dry up. I'm not procrastinating, I'm not delaying tactics. Well, I suppose I am a little bit, but I'm trying to sort of get this area sort of put away, squared away as it were, with nice little taps of extra colours and shapes and forms just to build it up. And the thing about watercolour is it's easily overdone. You know, it's nice to have it looking great, and but easily you can go past great to mundane and boring if you're not careful. So just always be aware that mundane and boring and dull are always just around the corner and waiting for you. Right, now I know there's a bit of a thicket on here, and I could do with warming up a bit of that tree there. That didn't do any good, did it? Let's take that back off. Too late. Okay. Didn't do that too well. I'm going to put that back in now and give that a little bit of light coming through there. That's what I wanted to do. And I think I'm going to put a little bit of umbers into there, just as suggesting into that. Let that bleed and soften into the green. That's fine. Looks a little bit dead in one or two places, and I hadn't looked at that. Right, another glug. Going through this water tonight, too. Very warm outside. Or warm in here anyway. Right, okay. I keep using the same bit of old paper. I'm going to change again. And now I'm going to, I think I'm going to go for that now. I'm going to put a bit of that blue violet into there. Maybe a tap more. I'm just going to come in and suggest this stump that's in the water here. Right, so, and then it comes back to a sort of rock shape there, which we'll put in, and then we use that bit of that there as the second rock, and we put that in there and pretend that's its top. So now we've got a nice little light reflection on there. We're going to utilize that, and then we're going to use this area in here. There's like a bit of wood or something, and we've got another little highlight running there, and then we can run this shadow all the way back through here, joining into that part there. Works very well. And then we can take this off to one side out through here, and we can make that disappear, what will become quite a dark mass on this side. So let's look at that now. Let's go in with some of our burnt sienna, and we're going to put in a lot of phthalo green, and the green and the red will neutralize each other. And let's just see where that takes us in terms of color. We may have to come back in and dress this up a little bit with darks, and maybe put in a little bit of lemon or aureolin, just to suggest that there's a bit of light in one or two places on here, catching it. And then we're coming in with more of our lovely indigo and our green and our sienna, real sienna. And that gives us a very, very heavy dark green. And I'm just going to tap some in the very base of this at the moment. And I'm just going to suggest that there are one or two leaves coming this way. More than you can see in the photo. There's a lot of very close values going on in the photograph, which I'm not totally looking at in here, but I will leave that as is. There is another stumpy bit which I need to put in, which we can put in, that dissects there, so that's good, that's helpful, that we can use that, and we can use that there. And there's another one which we can take almost up into the top there, and take that to there like so, and let the shadows and forms come across and bleed in. We've got a bit of a dark that comes through there, which is from there, leave that like so, another bit coming through here and joining into the back of that bush, and just leave that to dry. If you start mucking about with it too much now, it will wreck it. No, well, you know, you've got an artistic license as well, but do you use that, Judy? Right, okay, so I'm sort of looking around, and scratching my head. I want to come in, I want to reinforce some of this dark through here. So I'm going to come over with my trusted indigo blue again. I love this colour. And I'm going to use quite a bit of orange into that and make that really warm, dark colour that I love so much. And I'm going to come in here and try and get this looking where it should be. This nice dark piece of log. And try to make it look a little bit rugged on the end, like so. And that is dark. And then it comes down, so I want to cut into that because there's a little log type thing there, which I want to put that in like that and join up with it, and then take that all the way back through to this space here. And then I'm going to use some of this green, and I'm going to use some yellow and orange just to mix that up and warm that green through. And I want to put in some darks in here and along here, and sort of trying to use some of the negative space now just to leave one or two areas that are lighter, so we've got a suggestion of foliage and not just lumps of colour. And I know I haven't addressed some of the lights and darks up in here, but I'm not too worried about it. I just want to suggest that there's growth there and stuff spiking off over here at the top of this piece of log. And we can then bring one or two down in through here and make some form of mass of ground down here that is into this blue, and we can actually reinforce that by adding some blue into that and just bring that in through there like that. And we've got shapes and forms in here that are sort of just bits of stuff going through and lots of dark logs. And to that I will put back in some browns and just start looking at some of these shapes that are logs that have fallen into the water, like so. And if we want to put highlights on these afterwards, there's no problem with that at all. We can put those on. There's this one's a bit of a weird one. Got like a lump that comes out of the water and then sort of just lays down somewhere over there. It may not quite go like that, but I'll live with that. Not so bad. Make it lose out a little bit there. Just tap some of the way out the way. And then there's another piece that's coming through like so. And that's going into the shadows, as it were. And but there's a load of them, as I say, and some are going off into the water, and you can tap them like so as though they're going under the water, like that one. Maybe just drag it out a little bit. It's disappearing. Here is quite a sharp one. We can leave that as it is. This, we can take this back and make that drag under the water again. All these little bits you just lessen and keep some of the impact going as you feel fit. Just one or two bits like that. So that one was going up to there. We can use that. And just checking to see. I think that really wants to come down like so. And this is when you're going to start getting a little bit fussy. And the idea is don't get fussy. Just go so far with it and then let it do what it wants to do. I'm just putting that in there. I wish that wasn't there. I'm beginning to wish that bit wasn't there. I don't think I can change that without messing that area up. And I'm not going to try really. Just going to leave that, he says, as he taps away into it. Might be able to lift it out like so. Not too bad. That shabby. Take some of that out too while my luck's holding. Let that dry, and I might just bring that blue back in through there in a minute. But that to me is fine. What I want to try and do is just lift a little bit of light out of there. It's rather heavy as a lump, so I'm going to take some out. Like that. Gives it a sense of, you can see into it, and it's got a bit of form. We're down to 23. Who's escaped? Who opened the bars and let somebody escape? I want to know. Alright, I'm going to put in a bit of a darker colour on this here, just to suggest this. It actually is a little higher. I'm going to bring it up a little higher, like so, and give this a lot more form there. And a little bit more up in here, because this has got a lot more room to get darker. We're going to bring that up through there, let that disappear. And the same with this little one here, little stumpy, and it goes off out the way over there. And there are one or two other marks up on here which we can suggest other forms coming down into the water. Little bits of logs that have fallen. One or two dark marks and taps of stones or something on the foreshore, like so. And let's just check the time. We're an hour and 20. So we're doing good. We're doing great, actually, as it happens. Right, so I didn't bring that tree in. I keep looking at that thinking that tree's not there, and it isn't there because it's not there but for a reason. And I want to come in while I've got some of these real good darks going on. I just want to come in and utilize some of those, warm some of these edges up in here. So some of these shapes, I just want to put in a bit of warmth to one or two of them. Just dry brush, scratching it across the surface just to warm up some of those lower colours. And while that's then damp, come back in with some nice strong indigo and just give a final punch to some of these darks right on this sand here. Over the back there. Just finish that edge off, like so. Taking this up to the tree would be good as well. And then leaving that little bit of light in places there, because I still want to suggest that you can walk through there. And just put one or two dark marks up in through here. Making that a little darker there. No, actually I want to go a little bit lighter, don't I? So I'll leave that there. Take that down to the edge there, and that warmth is now reacting nicely with that sandbar, that light of the sand. They're both sort of punching around with each other. It's really good. Okay, I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to take one or two marks up in here. Like so, leave that like that. Alright. So now then, I've got to start looking at finishing off, haven't I? Because we've got time's clicking on, and I need to do all the highlighting work afterwards as well, which I haven't actually attempted to do yet. So I'm just looking at some of these shapes in here, and I just want to put in a bit more dark in here, just to set this up a little bit further, bring that around, and a nice sort of shapes that are just suggesting the flow of the water. A little bit more blue violet in there, like so. And taking some down this way, and just reinforcing some of these darks in here again, where it's lightened up as we've carried on. And it's these darks that are going to actually help us when it comes to any highlights that we do. So just putting some more marks in here, just bolstering that off there and that bit there, and just adding support and weight to the fact that that is in the water. And what did I do here? Yeah, sorry, just wanted to carry on the theme from here and into this one too. Again, I'm using the tip quite extensively. I'm going to put a bit of dark warm in here as well what I can. Just some really strong oranges in here. Against that blue, it will work very, very nicely in here. Adds weight to the front of the picture too. Orange will not hurt. Leaving that cool there, and a little bit of orange under there. A bit pure, a bit too much possibly, but I'm going to lay it in there and see how it looks. Just have a bit of fun with the colour now. Warming one or two of these other areas up, just giving them a bit of an extra little wash over the top, which I quite like the look of. Changing it's glazing over the blue. It's literally quite just a glaze over the top, and that can be very beneficial. It can work against you, but don't overdo it. It just looks nice and just warms your cools, and you can do the other way around. Of course, you can cool some of your warms in the same way. Let that cool and go into there. Almost like the sun's taking itself into that area. Actually, it's worked out very well. Because you're not actually leaving all that heavy colour, you're just simply leaving a suggestion, a glow of the other colour over the ones that you've already put on. And come back with a little bit of blue. Okay, I'm going to let that dry, and hopefully we haven't done it over too much anywhere at all. Right, okay, 23. We've lost one. There will be an investigation afterwards, of course, to find out who that was that absconded and broke out, but you know, we will get to the bottom of that, I'm sure. Okay, so I am now going to let this dry up a little bit. I want to put in a bit of cool green colour, not that cool, bit of violet into there. That orange won't hurt. Just to come in with a little bit of dark in here, just to suggest that that bush is with us, and it's got a little dark area there, light on the edges. I don't want to make too much of it, I just want it to be there, but I want it dark at its core. So I'll leave that like that and just let things do what they want to do. Alright, okay. So now I have got to wait for it to dry. I will get the hairdryer out and then we'll go into the last part. Hairdryer. Dry this off. going to tap in some gouache into the highlights, and I do want to, I'm going to mix some with colour, so you're going to make some of these colours a little opaque than they were, and to that end it changes, but it won't absolutely destroy. And I don't want pure white in some of them, so I just want to suggest that there are sort of little flicks in here of that very pale orange into where some of the leaves are popping through. It will make you start getting a little bit detailed, but it's not so bad. I'm not going to try and do too much of it. I just want to suggest some of it. And yeah, just one or two bits, just where the light is just popping through some of these and catching them. There's some of that little frond coming that way and that way on there, and maybe another one down through the back there. Nice. So it's just mixing it up a little bit. Little taps, little dots, nothing more. There's quite a few sort of through the back here. I want to put one or two in there. Don't overdo it like that. And there's going to be one or two little bits up in here. Okay, adding a little bit more orange to some of it, and just popping in excuse me, popping in one or two through there, a little bit more light, and a bit of yellow to that, a bit of white, bit of yellow. I just want to tap in some of those light lovely greens that are just through the back there. Little scratchy marks, take some on, put some off. Little frond thing over the back there, catching a bit of light. One or two in here, just catching a little bit of light. Nothing too much. You get the idea. But I'm not using purely the white tonight. I am mixing it up with some other colours. Now I'm going to do the same here with a little bit of blue into the mix, making it very opaque in colour. And I'm just wanting to put a little bit of line through one or two of these little bits of wood. They're catching some of the little bits of sunlight. And one or two light little bits of this and that which I want to put in. I'm going to use a little bit of yellow to that too. Just tapping off the worst. Part of me doesn't want to do this at all. Part of me just loves all the bleeds and that are going on. And it's one of those things, you can or you can't. You don't have to, or you can do so. It's really down to you at the end of the day how you want to leave your painting. I'm just doing it because I'm sort of showing you how you can do it, I suppose, and what I could do, what you can do, can't do, etc, etc. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's fine. I think it's working. A little bit of light through there. Aliens in the back left of my room. What the heck are you saying? I'm looking. Ah, yeah. Sorry, that is. I didn't realise the camera was poking around that far. That's actually my Netflix on hold. Before this stream started, I was watching something on Netflix, and all I've done is paused it, and of course it's gone to changing different things on the back of the screen. I do apologize. I didn't realise that was doing that. How embarrassing is that? Well, there you go. Now you know how I pass my time with little bits of Netflix and stuff. There's 1 or 2 taps of light in there. And I'm going to put a little bit of light through the top of this log into there. I add a bit of water in and I'm allowing that little bit of light just to sit on the top of the water, and then it will dry in its own time, as it were. And I'm going to try and put that little bit of watery fall working on in there. Just going to put 1 or 2 little taps of light into the water itself, and let's put that in there. Tapping off a lot of it. Okay, not much more to do, really. The constant thing is to keep putting in little bits of, sort of light and reflection and stuff, and you've got to stop at some point, or you're just going to kill it. You're just going to overdo it, and that didn't help at all. There was too much water to the pigment then, so I'm going to take a little bit of that away. Just go in there again and do that. That's better. Just looking around to sort of put 1 or 2 more bits in here and there. Okay. Looking at the trees for a minute, I don't think I really want to do too much to the trees. If I start, then I'm going to actually have to do quite a bit more. I think this one could do with a little bit of light going down in 1 or 2 places here. But even that's probably quite unnecessary, to be quite honest with you. I don't think it needs it. And what you're balancing this painting with, quite honestly, is the fact that you've got a whole lot of detail in the actual reference. That is, some of it, I mean, it's all part and parcel of what's going on with the Everglades in this picture, in this scene, but at the same time you have to start thinking, what do you need to put in, what makes the picture, how does the picture work, and can I get rid of some of it to make the picture work totally. And I think you have to start taking stuff out of the picture to end up with something that is going to work as a painting right at the end. And I don't think we're too far off. I think that in all honesty, this has it's gone a little bit quicker than I thought it would do. And again, you can all put in so much more. I could have sort of gone in with loads of little taps, but I just wanted to feel the essence that we were in the glades. And yeah, I think I brought that off. I hope I have. Anyway, you'll be the judges of all that, I know. But I think it's okay. I think we brought that and made it work. There's always something extra that you feel you can or could have done. And in hindsight, you look at the picture in the morning and think, oh, really I should have done something a little bit more there, or I could have done something extra there. And you didn't, so it's no good crying over it. It is what it is, and if it works as a painting, then that's it. That's all you want it to do. You just want the feeling of, in this case, the Everglades, and whatever it is you're painting, you need to convey that. And you don't have to put every subtle thing in there, from a grasshopper to a big weed or a tree like the one we left out. Doesn't need to be there, so don't put it in. Okay, now there's always something that you could have done, and I think we got away with quite a bit, and it works. And yeah, there's no hum. Yeah, we've shaved 10 minutes off of the stream because we haven't got any technical problems tonight, so that's good. Yeah, the contrasts are key to this, of course, because you know you've got the light and the shadows and what have you, and that's really what I was looking for to do. And you know, it was about the warms and the cools, the reds and the greens, the oranges and the blues, and allowing those contrasts. And I wanted you to have the feeling that you were in this sort of heavily wooded glade, but instead of grass under your feet, you have water and potential hostiles in the water. I heard those. I saw. You see some of these snapping. I forget what they call them, but the snapping turtles, and they are very dangerous. And several come up to the little boat that we were in, and yeah. What, 100 minutes? 100 minutes? 100 minutes? Is it really 100 minutes? Good Lord. Okay, well, I've got to keep this going for 3 hours. I've got to knock the hours off of my totals for YouTube so I can get down to 0 and get monetized. So, there you go, guys. If you want to back-to-back my videos and watch them back-to-back and punch up the minutes, fantastic news for me. That would be awesome. So, yeah. That would be great, but that is what I'm doing. I'm doing these. I love doing these streams, don't get me wrong, but each and every one of them takes off a few hours off the total, and I think we're down to about 700 hours to kill. So yeah, if you've got nothing better to do, back to back those videos, especially the streams. They're the longer ones. All right, I'm joking apart. I've had a lot of fun with this tonight, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and I sort of came up with this, and yeah, I think it's worked quite well. Everything can be better. I'm not saying it's one of my best paintings at all, but I certainly don't think it's one of my worst. I'm quite happy with it, and it will sort of do what it's got to do. With that all said and done, don't forget that on Friday we've got an oil stream. I'm not quite sure. Oh yeah, you could watch Netflix. I can't see. Do you know, I didn't notice it. I'm going to pull the. What you can't see here is the fact that right over where my face is in this picture, I've got a load of white paint on my hand. Where my face is, the reference has been, so all I've seen is the top part of this picture where I get my hand in the right place. All I've seen is about from there through. So my head and my face, my talking head as they call it, has been out of shot, covered up by the reference. But now I pull the reference out, I can see the fact that you can see. Does anybody have a preference of what I put on the Netflix? I mean, if there's something particular you want to watch, I will put it on for you. Be good. Yes, the live streams all count towards the minutes, John. This is we're knocking off about at the moment with about 20 odd watching for 2 hours. We're knocking off on average about 36 hours off every stream. So, and when everybody sort of looks back over the next few days at the stream as well, it increases that total off. But yeah, 4,000 hours we've had to kill, and we've got to do it inside a year if we can, and we are on target to do that. We have, as I say, about 700 left to do, and my year up is at the end of June, so we're on target. But yeah, it's just getting people watching content. Basically, the more people watch, the more minutes go by, and the more they take off the totals. So as I said, if you've got unlimited deep pockets for electric bills, just leave the videos running. You can go and do the gardening. But here you go. I've enjoyed all of your company tonight. Anyway, that's been fantastic. I do appreciate you joining me for the stream. It's been fun. Yeah, you're exactly right, John. 4,000 hours, 250,000 minutes. It's a heck of a long time in coming. As a native Floridian, it resembles a swamp in a realistic and very artistic way. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. I forgot where you originated from, but yeah, no, that's fantastic. I appreciate the comment and the thought. I'm glad it sort of does what it intends to be done. But yeah, what else can I say? If anyone's got any requests of stuff that they want, if I've got the reference for it, I'll always paint it. For oils or watercolors, you can always leave them in the comment section underneath the videos. I'll always answer your comments. You know that it's not a problem. Yes, the origin mode very, very well, Wendy. Yeah. You can hear the frogs in the background. I don't think there's that many frogs. A few snapping turtles. Thank you, Jim. Thanks for joining us, and I appreciate your company tonight and everybody's company tonight. It's been great. If anyone's got any questions, I shall leave this stream running for a few more minutes, certainly. We're probably sort of heading closer to the 2-hour mark, but if anyone's got any questions to ask about this or about the procedure with the painting and the colours, please do so. It's not a problem. Oh, really? Wow. Yeah, I mean, all that history, Jim, it's just amazing, isn't it? Where it's all gone and what's all happened to all of us in that time. All our old faces that you knew and I've known have all gone. So we're fast becoming the old guard, I believe. Oh, it's awful. But there you go. Ben, thank you very much for joining us and your help. And in the preceding videos that we've done, we got there in the end with the sound. And I don't think anyone's complained. Judy, thank you very, very much. Good night to you. And hope you'll all join me on Friday for an oil or something. I don't know what, probably an oil. I keep tempting to do a pastel, but I just can't get all the pastels out and make a good sense of it. Town scene, or is it a train charging through the countryside? In 2 hours, John, you're not asking much, mate, but we'll have a look at that one. Bye, Teresa. Thanks ever so much for coming along. Oh yes, of course, sign it and remove the tape. Of course, what a fool. I will do that right now. Sorry about that, I didn't think of that. Okay, let's just get it signed off for a kickoff, and let's choose our colour. Come in there with a little bit of a dark. Just going to put it down here. There you go. Signed and witnessed by 20 odd people. Monday. Did I say Friday? Yes, Jim. Monday. You're correct. Thank you very much, Derek. Thank you for joining us. I'm just going to take the tape off and do my big reveal. I love this bit. It really does. Well, you must remind me in future if I forget to do this, because I do love it. It works. Sets the painting up so nicely. So you see what it's like with a nice white border around it. It's thanks to Wendy that I don't get these bleeds through, because she told me how to put that little cross piece on across the angles, and it does stop that penetration of paint down through the corner. So that's a very good tip, Wendy. Right, there's that one up there, and the last one along the top. There we go. Ba-boom! One final look at it. There you go. There's a nice border around, and I think it just sets the whole painting up very nicely. I'm really pleased with that. Yes, okay, John, I'm losing the plot. Yes, I'll see you in each and every one of you on Monday night for the oil. Monday. I'll make sure that I get it written down or tattooed. It will be Monday. Yeah, there you go. The tape's off. It's signed. It's finished. And not a bad job. And hope you've enjoyed yourselves. All right, guys. Well, I'm struggling to find what to say now. I've said everything I can. I think. Anyway, is anybody still there? I don't know. We've still got 21 watching, according to this. Is that right? We've got 21 still watching. I thought quite a few had already said goodbye. But that's great, and thank you all for sticking around. No questions about the painting have come in, or painting have come in. But don't forget, the stream's for fun, and the stream is to ask questions. So by all means, but yeah, that'll be great. And if you're not patrons and you want to become a patron, please look into being a patron. It helps financially support the channel. It helps me to be able to cope with all the efforts involved and the costs involved in creating films for you to enjoy. So if you are a painter and you would like to have more contact with me and more content to watch and enjoy, then take a look at my Patreon channel. You can get into it for $5, $10, $25 a month, whatever you want to do. And yeah, you're right, Jeff, it is beer time. And by all means, get involved with it, because the more patrons I get, and your support is most valuable to me. It helps me, and from that point of view, helps support the channel and me moving further on with everything I'm doing. Mark, thanks for joining us. Good night to you. Yeah, that's great. Cheerio, James. I'll expect my shed tomorrow. Sorry, couldn't resist. Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna sup up. I'm gonna wish you all a great weekend, and have fun, stay safe, enjoy the sunshine if that's what it is, enjoy your gardens or whatever you happen to be doing. But above all, have a go at some painting if you are a painter, and I'll catch each and every one of you on Monday evening. Look forward to it, guys. Take care. See you all soon. Bye bye. Yes, I'll see you on Sunday, Wendy. And I'll see all my patrons on Sunday. Especially Teresa, if you're watching. Sunday evening. Get onto Facebook, my lovely.